Hey there, week 6 in Major League Soccer has just finished. We're here to recap MLS Matchday 6. We have some results, including our best and worst of the week. We have some where we were right and where we were wrong, and we're going to finish the episode with a few teams that are in forms we did not expect, some better, some worse, and where we think they're going to be throughout the season. Thank you for joining us today on the Designated Pundits. I'm Bob here with Scott after a 1 day off. Looks like you missed our prediction show, but we still had a great week. You were in our thoughts there, struggling with some things at home. How you doing, buddy?
I appreciate that. I am good. I am good. I appreciate that. As everybody knows, sometimes life just gets busy and stuff like that. So I appreciate all of our friends stepping in to fill out for me and all of that. But yeah, I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Minor inconveniences in life. I oversold the something at the beginning there.
Nobody's dying. Everything's fine. Minor inconveniences.
But we got 4 guys on the show now, and we did make some great picks. So let's talk about those first, because I never thought I'd be saying this. 6 straight weeks in the positive for myself. 6 straight weeks in the positive for the show. Myself going 4-2, going up to 23-12 on the season. Scott, unfortunately, no official plays. But we had Dion with one nice plus 166 on the Dallas and under 3.5 goals. And you had Alex 2-2, just under. He was down 0.07 units. If you look at the season, here's another recap of the week. 7-7 on 14 wagers and plus 0.5 units. That is still a positive week. That is still better than losing money. And that, again, is the 6th week in a row for us in the positive. Yeah, 30, gonna need to recount that. 35 bets, 23-12 for myself, plus 13.62 units. Scott in the plus at plus 0.46 units. Hopefully that'll be going up a little bit this next weekend. 54-48 on the show, plus 14.31 units. That's the best you're going to find anywhere.
Yeah, you know what? I got to say, too, to get any sort of positive result out of this last weekend, I think is pretty good, because there were quite a few games this week that surprised me. Not always in terms of like the end result, but maybe how they got there, things like that. There were twists and turns, and there were some upsets and stuff like that. So, overall, good job not falling into some of the traps.
So my best thing I saw this week was goals. That's it. I had 2 bets with both teams to score, which is a play style I'm kind of trending away from this season, and probably for good reason, because it's really easy to get burnt taking both teams to score and not taking, alternate total overs, over 3.5, something like that. But
yeah,
both teams to score, no draw in Miami-Philly. Fantastic match, 2-1 Miami, and there was so much heat on Philadelphia. I know there was a lot of money being thrown down on that, a lot of disappointed players. One of the shows I guessed it on last week had both other hosts take Philly, and I'm just sitting there like, come on, guys. How many times do we need to see it? Well, we saw it again, Miami with a 2-1 win. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah. I think the thing that everybody forgets is that even though if you put on your little analyst hat and you look at Miami objectively and you say they're just not that good at defense, and they're only, really they're kind of only okay in the midfield, and their offense is just, guys being magic and some really good passing, let's be honest. But there's a lot of times that you put on your analyst hat and you say teams should get at them, and over and over and over they don't. Teams don't. And at some point you just have to say, okay, Miami's doing something different. Teams are playing Miami differently. And so you cannot expect teams to just, in the regular season, go after Miami the way that Atlanta maybe did it in the playoffs.
And I remember Red Bull playing against them twice last season, and the first time was a 4-0 win. They pressed the heck out of them and got the result they wanted. The next time they went down, and that's where the danger is when you go down to Miami, because they went down by a goal, and then it was 6-2. Final score, like, they won by 4, they lost by 4. And I think that's how you got to see teams like this. People talk about the pressure of Philadelphia, but they're still pretty new running that system. They did have the XG numbers 2.2 to 2.13, and I guess we can kind of hang our hat on that. But Ty Baribo had a really bad miss, just not being clinical enough for his squad. They did have 6 big chances for the Philadelphia Union. Got the yips, couldn't put him on net. So either way, we got a lot of goals there. And in the second match, my both teams to score over 2.5. Galaxy versus Orlando. I knew I did not want to have to pick a winner. That came in as quite a good choice because LA Galaxy, the team I might have bet on, lost on the day. This was a sweat match for me. Orlando didn't score until, the 80th minute, and then they put 2. Muriel won the game in stoppage time. I think 76-minute Ojeda penalty kick Muriel at the death. So that one turned out to be my way. Best thing I saw, a lot of goals. You can add LAFC and San Diego FC in there. We're going to talk about that match a little bit later in the show.
Yes. Look, that's a great best thing you've seen this week. The best thing that I saw this week, I'm going to go with a very specific play. And this is Smolikov's banger, just absolute banger for LAFC. I know you've got a clip on that. We're going to watch this. This is actually nice all, from start to finish. You're going to look at some nice, pass out of the back kind of shape from San Diego, but a really good counter press from LAFC. It's not going to work out for him, but Smolikov's going to pick this up on his left foot, and he is going to score an absolute worldie. And we're going to get a shot from behind. If you're watching online, you're going to get a shot from behind the goalie here, and you're going to see all of the movement on this ball. And look, this isn't necessarily a rocket. It's not the frozen rope or whatever.
Sure.
But and it's not perfectly in the corner. But why does this go in? It's because of all the side to side and up and down movement that this ball has. CJ Dos Santos really has no chance at it because he is tracking this ball over quite a distance. It looks like it's going to be over here. It comes in over here. He's got to adjust several times. And then at the end of the day, it's really high. This ball dips right at the last moment, hits the underside of the bar, careens down into the goal. Just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful strike. So much technique. Best thing I saw this week.
Yeah, the whole sequence was great, and the fact that San Diego was up 3-0 to LAFC kind of gave them a little bit of hope. Here, what I see also, you have a lot of players in front of the keeper, and when that happens, they are a little slower to react. In hockey, we call that a screen. Like, you try to put players in front of the goalie. Soccer, maybe you can't, wag your fingers in his face and get there, but absolutely, maybe a little bit of a screen there. Saw the ball really late, and plus, he's like a young player on a team who's getting beat by this new expansion side. I think the final score there was 3-2, so he definitely gave some life and some belief to his team that was otherwise down and out. So I think that was a fantastic goal. I remember I tweeted something about LAFC can't even be the big brother to the new expansion side. And then I tweeted right out, I took Smolikov's face and put it on the crying Michael Jordan and just tweeted
nice.
and he took that personally. I know that got a lot of likes out there.
That's a good meme.
I tried.
I like that.
Worst thing you've seen this week?
Worst thing I see this week, LA goalkeeping. In general, both LA goalkeepers, McCarthy and Hugo Lloris, both made really costly, really bad mistakes. McCarthy's is maybe a little bit worse in terms of the end result. His mistake comes at the 90th minute. It's tied 1-1. It's a Luis Muriel free kick. And I don't know, it hits him in the hands, but he mistimes his jump or something. Yeah. So he's kind of coming down. Still should have just been able to catch it pretty comfortably, but it just goes off the fingertips and falls gently in the goal behind him. That's terrible. Hugo Lloris should have had a very simple collection off of a free kick. He's very much uncontested. He just drops it. It falls right to Valakari. That's who it was. Falls right to Valakari, who just pokes it home. Both of these teams end up losing by 1 goal. Both of those errors very costly.
I do want to touch on the LA Galaxy game. If we could just rewind to the LA Galaxy or Orlando match there for a second. LA Galaxy had a player who I love have a really bad game. That's Yamane. 0.58 expected assists. He got an assist, but he had one big miss. He missed a big chance. I guess that's like the new term for, like an open shot. And then he conceded a penalty. So his net goals was -2 on the match. Not great for LA Galaxy on a defender that usually plays quite well up there.
Did he also get the yellow card for diving this week?
I'd have to go back and rewatch. I'm not too sure on that now. But on the other side of the ball, a player who I gave the worst of the week just 2 weeks ago, Eduard Atuesta, player of the match. 53 of 60 passing, 0.17 expected goals. But he had 2 clearances, 2 tackles. He won a penalty, and he hit the post once, almost added a goal for Orlando. So I do like to see Orlando. Hey, I said they're going to live and die by that midfield with Cartagena. Now, can Cesar Araujo and Eduard Atuesta get some chemistry? Maybe they can, and that would be a great thing to see. Now, my worst of the week, this is going to be controversial, so I want to make sure you drop in the comments if you are watching along, because I'd really love to know your thoughts about this. Now, I do want to say there's a little bit of a difference between what I want to be true and what I know to be legal, right? And one of the worst things that for me visually and then just sportingly, I hate stutter stepping before penalties. Scott, can you tell me what you think about it? Because I'm very dug in on this opinion.
I have kind of a middle ground opinion, I'll be honest. I am okay with the stutter step as long as the player continues to move forward, and as long as the player ends up just taking the penalty. I really dislike the stutter step if the player actually completely stops their momentum, and I think it should absolutely be an infraction if the player stops their momentum and takes a step backwards.
Absolutely.
That once you start your run up, you're going forwards.
Yep. That should be considered the penalty has been taken. Not even retake. It has been taken. You ran towards the ball, you stopped, you're done. Maybe from my old hockey days, that's a little different than what we expect. But let's take a look at these two. The first, I felt was personally. I'm a Red Bull fan. This was at the end of the game. A good call on a penalty. I think there was a foul on Red Bull there. If it was called either way on the field, I don't think there's really enough to overturn what had happened. But that's not what we're talking about. Here we're talking about Carlos Hill stepping up, leaning forward, stopping completely, taking his feet planted forward, and then both planted backwards from their original position.
It's that left foot especially takes a big step backwards.
So I learned a lot about penalty kicks and what exactly is in the rules. And it turns out that just about everywhere you go, every level you play, it's something a little different. There's a lot of places in the world that this would not be allowed. Here it is, and it seems like they're allowing more and more and more each and every year. It's kind of like watching, like double dribbles in the NBA or like traveling, to me, it's like unwatchable because I just have.
Don't bring up NBA officiating.
My 4th grade phys ed coach, I just imagine blowing the whistle every time you did anything remotely close to what. Either way, I think it's unsporting. I don't like it, but I did learn that apparently in Major League Soccer, as long as once you step to the ball, you kick it forward. Anything you do in the walk up doesn't matter.
It's an interpretation. So I know people sent you stuff from different leagues, which is really unhelpful, folks. If you're going to make a commentary about Major League Soccer, you should know Major League Soccer's rules. Major League Soccer plays by IFAB's rules, right? So there's an app. Go download the app, folks. IFAB Rule 14 Law 14 is the penalty kick. This is the rule that MLS adheres to. There is a line here about kicker infractions. It says feinting to kick the ball once the kicker has completed the run-up. This is the interpretation, is that...
Yeah. When is the run-up completed?
When is the run-up completed? This stutter step where Carlos Hill takes his step back, the ref is interpreting that as the run-up not been completed because he hasn't reached the ball. And so he hasn't done like a feint. He hasn't pretended to kick the ball or anything like that. So feinting to kick the ball once the kicker has completed the run-up is an infraction. Fainting in the run-up is permitted. That is actually written out in the law. So if you faint after you've completed the run-up, it's an infraction. The referee actually cautions the kicker, so you get a yellow card for that. I understand the interpretations. I understand why it is permitted. Something that you said either just now or before in the build up to this.
Yeah.
You said it just now. It's unsporting. The thing is, we already give so many advantages to the penalty kick taker, and truthfully, not all penalty kicks are created equal, right? Somebody who handballs something to stop it from going in the goal, right? That's a for sure goal. But a foul on the edge of the box when there's 11 players in the box, that's not a for sure goal. So those are not equal chances. We do not need to give penalty kick takers more advantages over the goalie. The goalie's already at a tremendous disadvantage. Just stop players from going backwards.
That I would completely agree with. Maybe even give the keepers like a little extra space. Like I don't, you don't need to be completely with your toes on the line. It's just so.
I don't like
it
the toe on the line thing either. Actually, I won't die on that hill. No. I understand it. I don't want goalies just charging out as soon as the whistle blows or anything like that. This is an MLS 96, but that like adherence that the goalie has to have a foot on the line when the ball is struck.
Yeah.
Like we're just hamstringing goalies so much that you might as well just give the goal.
And as bad as the stutter step looks, and I'm going to play the dinky one now, because when my tweet was going viral about this happened with Dinky, and he does the same thing. He runs forward, kind of does looks like he does like a little ladder drill, and then steps backwards on it, and he kills it, puts it in the back of the net too. I think specifically, like we talked in the past about how a ref in one game played one call by letter of the law, and then the next call on the other team in the opposing box was by spirit of the law.
Mm-hmm.
How are we getting less strict about the stutter step, but also simultaneously more strict about the goalkeeper staying on the line? Like I've seen more penalties retaken for the keeper leaving the line too early in the last few seasons, especially in the postseason last year. And how are we getting more strict on that, but less strict on this? It seems like it's kind of going in opposite ways. I know it's goals, but
it is.
It's already so hard. At least give the goalie a fighting chance here.
I agree. And fundamentally, that's what it comes down to for me. It feels like we are actually punishing the goalie beyond what we actually have to do. I get it. This sport is about goals. Goals drive viewership. Goals drive revenue. Goals drive fan engagement.
But
so you want those
from the run of play, not from the spot.
Yeah, we want more beautiful soccer. We don't want more penalty goals. We don't need to encourage players to be playing for that kind of thing.
Yeah,
to be playing for penalty goals. You saw, I actually checked it. Yamane did get a yellow card for diving, and he dove in the corner of the box. Right. So if the ref falls for that, and VAR doesn't spot something to overturn it, that's a penalty, right? And a really unjust, because the ball's not going towards goal. There's not really a scoring chance off of that. And so you really want to disincentivize players from playing for penalties. That's not what the game is about. That's not what the sport is about. That's not what fans are there to see, right?
Although I've seen more flops that aren't getting called recently. Like I remember like 3 years ago, that it would be pretty common for a player to take a dive, and even the commentators would be like, "Oh, he's risking a yellow on that one." And now you see like more flagrant dives and less cards. It just, again, I understand this is not within the law, that this is not illegal for Major League Soccer. I just don't like it, and I'm allowed to not like what I don't like.
You are. Although I will say on diving, Yamane got one this week. Acosta got one last week. Lucho Acosta got a yellow for diving last week. So there is some of that. And early this season as well, Miggy Almiron got a fine for unpunished diving in one of the early Atlanta games. So I don't know. Maybe the officials are cracking down on that.
Now, when we talk about things that we don't like in Major League Soccer, or in soccer in general. You know, Sir Alex dropped us a clip, and he hates playing out of the back.
He does.
He's like a purist who wants to go back to 1987, you know, the year of my birth, and talk about all of these, you know, pure soccer. Kick it upfield, give everyone a chance to jump for it. But the jump balls are increasingly unpopular because you're losing possession half the time. In favor of playing out the back. Unfortunately, when you play out the back, what happens?
You give it up sometimes.
Here, Anthony has a goal off of a McGlynn error. This is less playing out the back and more passing back to your keeper. But I think that falls under the same, like, don't kick the ball to your goalie. There's a reason they can't pick it up, and it's because you shouldn't be putting the ball there anyway. So let's take a look here. You'll see Portland starts kind of passing the ball around. Houston takes advantage on a turnover. McGlynn turns around to pass back to his goalie without seeing that there's an attacking player. Goalie comes out and risks, I mean, he makes a lot of contact there. But Antony's right there. Don't worry about a penalty. Don't worry about a card. I'm going to be here to put a ball away for my teammate. That's exactly what he did.
I got to say, it's really good anticipation by the number 9. I think that's Felipe Mora, right?
Yeah.
Really good anticipation. You can see him reading the play. He sees that it's the pass back to the goalie. That's what's on. And he actually jumps that route. So if he doesn't jump that route, this never happens. The goalie does come out, makes quite a bit of contact with the ball before contact with the player. So I think he's probably safe from a red card or anything like that. But he is fully committed. It's just one of those ones. These are the risks you take when you are a possession team. When you're like, okay, we're going to pass out of pressure instead of trying to dribble or something like that. When McGlynn has his back to the field, right, and he's got pressure coming and he really has nowhere to go with that ball, he's going to play that pass. But that's the danger of not looking first.
When you look at Felipe Mora's heat map from this match, it's all between the center circle and the penalty spot. Like that's the only place he was. So it's not like he was even tracking back. That's kind of where he was the whole match, right in that spot. Playing off sides, that's fine. I mean, when you play with wingers, your center forward's going to have plenty of time to get in the mix as the plays move shifting down the field. So absolutely great jumping on that ball, Felipe Mora. But my boy Antony put it in the back. And then I say my boy because we're going to move to our last one of our next segments, which is something we're bringing back from past years, which is what we got right, what we got wrong. Now, you were not on the prediction show, so you can haunt us, and I want to hear your comments on this. Maybe tell us what you would have thought ahead of the weekend. What I got right is Portland winning 3-1 over Houston Dynamo. It was plus 120. They were not heavy favorites to win. And particularly, Antony. He had a brace. Let's hear what I had to say about Antony on our show earlier this week. I just think that they are going to be competitive. Even when they're bad, they're pretty good at home. Jonathan Rodriguez is out, but Antony, who was supposed to be the winger last year, we thought Cabecita was going to be the center forward, ends up playing left wing. He's stepped up and played fantastically. So I think that there's a lot of good players, a lot of value to be had here.
Nice. Look, good analysis on Antony. He was a bit disappointing last year. He is stepping into that contributor role this season. Look, he's still got a long season ahead of him, but there are some really good signs that Portland's offense is starting to figure stuff out, and Jonathan Rodriguez is not even really back in the lineup.
Yeah, and you're going to see that. And one of the things I like about Antony, he is not a pure forward winger. His responsibility was the whole left side of the field. And you saw he had 4 clearances, 3 total tackles. He was dribbled past one time. His duels were terrible. He won like 5 of 17 duels that he was in, which I think is just where the ball's kind of 50-50, like who comes away with it when it's at your feet.
Well, especially a forward player is going to lose a lot of duels. Right. And he's a winger, but he's kind of an attacking winger. So he's going to have a lot of opportunities up the field. Yeah. He's going to be going into duels in bad situations.
But he was involved in 17 of them. That's the takeaway, isn't that?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and 3 tackles look, folks, 3 tackles for any player who's not like a defender or a central defender, especially
3
is
tackles for a defender is a lot of tackles.
It's a lot of tackles. Yeah, tackles are kind of a rare stat, rarer than you think they would be. Most of them are considered duels, so 3 tackles is a lot.
A tackle for a duel is like when the ball's kind of 50-50. If a player slows down running, now it's between 2 guys' feet. That's kind of considered a duel. A tackle is like the player is running at you and you steal the ball from them, like a slide tackle or a heavy body to body tackle, something like that. Most defenders, even great defenders, will have 2 to 3 tackles a match. Anthony's right up there with them.
Yeah, so really influential. Great look on that. If you want, I'll give you one where I think I would have been wrong. And
I'd love to talk about when you're wrong.
I'm
one of my top favorite subjects in the world.
Right, so much to learn about when you're wrong, I would have been wrong about Vancouver. Going away to Toronto, I wouldn't have ever said, hey, it's an easy one to go to Toronto and get a win, right? It's never easy to go on the road, especially when you're flying across country. But this Vancouver team is good. And they can hurt you in a lot of different ways. And this Toronto team, to me, is still kind of not there. They're still kind of iffy. Yeah, Insigne's playing again, so that helps them. But I would not have seen this game going 0-0.
I agree. And that is actually the clip that I pulled for where I was wrong. Let's hear what I had to say, because I was a lot more incisive than you were. Yeah, here on the show, we have 3 plays on Whitecaps plus 135. I just think that this one is inevitable. I do understand the squad rotation, but usually I take that more into account for games after a midweek match more than before it. I think that Vancouver Whitecaps could put out their B squad and leave with a result. I have no faith in Toronto, what they're doing. I saw them with Insigne at Red Bull Arena right in front of me, and there's just nothing there. There's nothing there.
I wonder.
Apparently a 0-0 draw was still in the cards, however.
I wonder if Vancouver, if we're seeing a little bit of last year's Vancouver, because if you really think back to them, they were a team built of really, really good role players with some really good top end talent on top of that. Ryan Gauld, Brian White last year especially, and the role players, everybody would step up when they needed to, and you just got that. But every now and then, this Vancouver team would just kind of drop a stinker, lose to teams they shouldn't really lose to, and they would lose at home or whatever, and then win on the road, and they were a little unpredictable like that. And I wonder if that's still something that we're seeing in that group.
Yeah, that's it. And if anyone's wondering, if you just heard air raid sirens, Bergenfield, the town that I live in, has every public park has like these alerts that go off when a thunderstorm's in the area. So that's what we're just getting some weather. We're alive, or you're not witnessing the end of the world. Yeah, I agree. Vancouver had a couple of easy matches. They beat Portland, who was a man down from the 11th minute. Then they beat Galaxy and they beat Montreal at home. Okay, those are games you should win at home. These are two poor teams. They got a good 1-0 result against Dallas. Yeah, you could do that too. Maybe it has been a little bit of the teams that they play. Vancouver's going to be an incredibly tough place for other teams to travel, and they do have that advantage in like multiple times this year where they're playing 2 or 3 straight games at home. Those are going to be big advantages, but maybe this team isn't quite as I said, inevitable as I may have led the world to believe.
Yeah, I still think they're going to be a good team over the course of an entire season. They still have really solid players in just about every single position. They've got some top end talent, and there's some really nice players who I think will develop into like real stars in this league. I think like Jaden Nelson is one of them.
Yeah.
I think Sebastian Berhalter is another guy that's on a real upward trajectory. Pedro Vites has been better this season than we've seen him before. So there's real potential in that group, but I think you're right. They're not quite there. So inevitable is not quite the right term for them yet.
As bad as Toronto is, they can still get results. They're still a major league soccer team, and I think we need to maybe consider that a little more moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to talk about, Alex had one in here about Chicago's tie with Montreal. Do you want to talk about that? Or I know we're going to talk a little bit about Chicago later.
We are, and if you're hearing my mic pick up the rain, I think we need to get into this before I lose power. So let's move on to the next segment, which is Trend or Pretend. I'm going to pick, I have 5 teams, 3 doing really well, 2 doing really poorly, and is their current form a trend, or is it something we could just throw out? Trend or Pretend. First team, Philadelphia Union, 4 wins, 2 losses.
Ooh, the losses I think are like the last 2 games for Philly, right? I think both things for Philly are not really trends. I think Philly had a hot start. I think teams are starting to understand Philly's play style a little bit better. Remember, Philly had a coaching change, so
yeah,
things are different. Teams didn't know what they were going to do. That newness is wearing off. Teams are catching up. Philly's going to have to earn their results a lot more, and teams are going to understand how to get at Philly's defense a little bit better. So things will be rough, but I still think there's a decent squad in there. So I don't think Philly's doomed to anything.
I completely agree. I think that they're overproducing in expected goals and expected goals against by almost 2.5 full goals. They lost 3-1 at home to 6th place Nashville. They lost 2-1 to Miami. Okay, there's no shame in that. They beat 7th place Orlando, 8th place Cincy, 13th place Revs, and 9th place St. Louis. Those are all teams that I think are going to do better throughout the course of the season, with the exception of the Revolution. Sorry, guys. But right now, those teams are in a bad place, and they're not seeing film on Philadelphia. Right? Philadelphia started with 3 wins, and they had loss, win, loss. The more you get film on Bradley Carnell's side, the worse the team's going to be against teams that they play against. They don't get tested until May 10th, where they have Columbus, Crew, LA Galaxy, Atlanta, and Miami back to back to back to back. And I'm assuming LA Galaxy might have something going on by then. So I don't think even the next 3 or 4 games is going to give us information we need about Philly. We're going to need to watch into later on in the season. So I think that this is a pretend. I think they are a mid-table club, which is a huge improvement from where they were last year. I just don't think that they are going to be world beaters sitting in 3rd place by the end of the season.
No, definitely mid-table.
Now, Tricky is a team with 1 loss, Chicago Fire. 3 wins, 2 draws, and a loss. Disappointing result this week against Montreal, where they were outplayed, no question. But overall, they're beating teams they haven't beaten in the past, and to me, that's the difference. Zinkernagel looks great in a match where Kuipers wasn't really at his best, so I like the fact that it's not only one guy. It's not only Brian Gutierrez and no one else. It's other guys who are able to, okay, you can have your bad game, I'll step up. Something that didn't happen in the past. The biggest change, maybe they got talent, Zinkernagel, sorry. But just Berhalter has the team believing that they don't suck. That's it. It's as much as that for me.
I agree with that. Well, and I think that he has been really smart in the way he's set up the team. He's got players playing in positions and in a style and in roles that actually favor them. He is asking Ugo Kuipers to do things that Ugo Kuipers is good at, right? Which is being in and around the box and poaching at things and stuff like that. And so Kuipers isn't being asked to create his own chances or whatever. He's being asked to finish off chances that are right there in front of goal, and that's what he's good at. And so that's why he's got goals. I think that Chicago is a team that teams will have to take seriously. I think they are trending for real. I think they're for real in terms of like being a legitimately competitive team. I do not think they are the 4th place team in the East.
We're going to see that over the next 2 matches. They head to Red Bull Arena, a very tough place to play and leave with a result. And then they host Inter Miami. Very interesting stretch for Chicago Fire. I mean, this could be 2 blowout losses, or they can prove to us that they are a trend, not a pretend. I have this on trend just because they were so bad for so many years that I think they're a decent team now. I think they are competitive in Major League Soccer now.
Yeah, I think they're competitive.
What about Austin FC? 4 wins, 2 draws. 4 wins, 2 losses. They have some impressive wins: LAFC, San Diego, and St. Louis. They lost to Timbers in Colorado when they were at home. They beat Sporting KC, which you kind of have to do. But Austin, they've beat some good clubs for us to just say it's a fluke. How do you feel about that them rest of the season?
They have one good win. That's what I would say to that. They have one good win, and it's the one against St. Louis in St. Louis. That's a good win. Truthfully, the win against San Diego, if you watch that game, San Diego was bad. Yes. Really bad. And Austin still probably should have not gotten out of there with a win because they tried really hard to not do that. LAFC, I would argue the LAFC right now is not a good team. They are middling at best right now. Offensively, they're pretty so-so. Defensively, they're pretty suspect. I think Austin are kind of pretenders. They're sitting second place in the West. I don't see them staying there. Their offense is not good enough for that. Their defense is, been riding their luck a little bit. Sometimes you do that. There's no shame. But I just don't see them legitimately staying there.
5 goals and 3 goals against, a +2 differential, and you have 4 wins and 2 losses. That seems a little opportune to me. However, they are where they are, and they are not a bottom feeder. I mean, it's like every other year, these Texas teams are all at the bottom together, or all at the top together, all in the middle together. I am very interested to see what happens in the summer. I've talked about this earlier on the show. I think those Texas teams who like that sweltering heat in the middle of the summer, well, that's Leagues Cup now, where you have 5 less games in the middle of the summer than you had in the past. I think it's going to be as challenging to play in some of these traditional hot zones as it would be to be like St. Louis City, who's going to flying out to the West Coast every week. They're going to get some good results, but can they do it week in and week out for 34? I don't think this Austin hot streak has 34 games in it.
No, I really don't think it does. Do you want to talk about Seattle?
Sure. Seattle, 1 win, 3 draws, 2 losses. Decisive win against LAFC. But that was at the death. They won 5-2, but there were like 4 goals in the last 12 minutes of the match. They lost to RSL, which is bad. You can't drop those points. Shut out by St. Louis City and Houston, which is okay. I mean, those are good defenses. I just don't see how Seattle turns this around. Actually, they signed a player today who I would need to study a little bit on. We're gonna talk about him a little bit on the Twitters or on Blue Sky, most likely. If you hit me tomorrow, we'll talk about their new signing there. But for me, there's just not a guy who's going to step up and throw this team on his back. We had magic already from Seattle with Rothrock last year. Jesus Ferreira, I mean, he's getting outplayed by Rusnak.
Mm-hmm.
Completely played off the field. And you got Pedro de la Vega still hurt. You got injuries. I don't know how this team turns around. I'm not worrying. I'm not panicking because I think it's not I think. It's true. They always come out very cold at the beginning of the season, turn it on the right time, and coast to the cup. That's the Brian Schmetzer way. However, you don't want to give yourself so many points in the background because then you're going to be on the road the whole playoffs. So I don't know how many more games it's going to take for Seattle to right this ship, but it's got to happen soon.
Yeah, Seattle's still got good bones in the squad, but the offensive problems have not gone away the way that we thought they would. More than that, Seattle, when they go on the road, does not look good. They look like a very different team than the Seattle that plays at home. And it's not like, oh, well, they're set up differently and they just whatever. Like, no, they lack intensity on the road. When they came to Salt Lake, that team that played against Salt Lake and the team that played the week before that and the week after that, completely different teams. Completely, like, names on the jerseys the same, bodies in the jersey, very different people. Lacked intensity, lacked commitment, lacked drive, belief. I don't know what it was, but there's something about this Seattle team right now that is very weird. But I agree with you. They do this to us every year, and we'll sit here and be like, they're really bad. Yeah. And then somewhere in the middle of the year, they'll turn it around. They'll go on a hot streak. They won't lose a game for like 3 months, and they'll be comfortably in the playoffs.
The thing for me, I'm done with these old guys. I don't want to see 2 roll-downs on the field for 90 minutes each and every match. I don't want to have to see João Paulo play for 90 minutes. Like I don't need to see these older players. You talked about intensity. Who's the best player we've seen on Seattle all season long? Because I have a name in the back of my head that we talked about 3 episodes ago, and it seemed like a guy who was hungry, who actually wanted to win. You have Paul Arriola out. You have Pedro de la Vega out. And you're putting in Alex Roldan, moving him up and moving the defense back to 3 men. Bringing in Costa Rienzi. Galina Costa Rienzi, he was the hottest player. He wants to play. He wants to wear that uniform. He wants to play attacking football. He's the life that I've seen that this squad hasn't had for 2-3 years now.
Or Manungu. That's a guy who makes stuff happen. Maybe he doesn't always have the end product. Maybe he's not as polished, but that's a guy who will give you 110% every time he's on the field.
We've already seen with the U.S. men's national team that sometimes it's just a matter of heart. And you don't need a ton of vibes guys out there. 1 or 2 that's going to pick the guys up. I mean, I felt like a young man watching Costa Rienzi play. You're going to tell me that, Jordan Morris is going to put a little extra pep in his step watching a 20-year-old kid out there balling?
Yeah. Or getting benched for that kid to play. Like
that's the one. Yeah.
That's the one. Like I'm with you on that. Schmetzer's got to shake it up just a little bit. And I think he does. He needs to get some of these young guys more integrated and make those old guys really fear for their jobs.
Absolutely. Alex Roldan is 28. Yes, I know. I'm reminded every time because I talk about him like he's old man winter, like he's just got a 15-foot beard. But he doesn't excite me when he plays. It could just be me. I know everyone loves him. He's like anyone in Seattle. I'd have my head cut off right now. But it's not exciting to me, and I don't think him and his brother playing together on the field is much more than a good story. It's like there's better.
I think Christian Roldan still has a really important role to play. And I remember talking to Jackson Feltz in the preseason, and he talked about how moving Christian Roldan deeper into the midfield allowed him to be more of a leader on the field and stuff like that. And I buy into that. I really do. Alex Roldan is a nice player, but I think ultimately he's got a very hard ceiling. I like Christian Roldan, I think, is the better player, and I think his ceiling is higher. And I think every time he hits what we think his ceiling is, I legitimately believe that he's got something in there that he can take that a little bit higher. Alex Roldan, I don't think has that. When you're talking about X factor, whatever, I think he's just kind of a nice right wing back.
Yeah.
League average, unremarkable in every way. Not bad, not good, just he's there, and he will give you something every time.
He's not a player you should be changing your defensive shape to get on the field.
No.
That's what it is. Comes down to me.
Yeah, he fits what you're doing, or he doesn't fit what you're doing. But it's just okay. But if he was on my team, I wouldn't really be that worried about it either. You know what I mean?
Agreed. All right, guys, we are up against a hard cap of a storm moving in, and unfortunately, my home studio, which is all these wires and technical, is right next to a window. So before I get cut out, we're gonna cut out. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, Thursday 8:00, we have new bets for the weekend. Hottest MLS show in the history of the sport. I'm very confident in saying that. 6 straight weeks. The show's in profit 6 straight weeks. This guy's in profit. Scott's gonna be back this week over there on that side. Forgot my mirrors on. And he's going to be back with some great picks this week. We hope you join us, and we'll see you then. Have a great week, guys.
Night.